Hello and welcome to the Coaching Podcast, Coaching for Success in Sport and Business. Your host is Emma Doyle, the energy and high performance under pressure coach who is a world leader in unleashing human potential. Buckle up for this high octane session. Let 'em have it, coach.
G'day everybody and welcome to the Coaching Podcast. Today I'm interviewing Karen Davis, who's an executive coach, author, keynote speaker, and highly accomplished with over 25 years of leadership experience in the business-to-business technology sector and so much more. She's a PCC coach, so we both hold that with the International Coaching Federation. That's really important on my show as well, just to make sure my guests are not only qualified, but they've lived the experience of coaching. So I'm so excited for this conversation, Karen. So welcome to the show. And I'm going to ask you your first pattern break question. And that is, if coaching was a color, what color would it be?
The color that's dropping in is more of like a lavender, where there's a soft side to it, but then it can shift over into that deep purple kind of intensity. And so on the spectrum of colors, that's the one I choose.
Well, you're the first person who I've interviewed that actually sent me a copy of your book in advance. And I just want to say, first of all, I appreciate that. So anyone listening out there, if you want to get on a show or you want to be on a podcast, then they're the little things that matter, whether it be a token, thank you card, or whatever it might be. So I've got a copy of your book in my hand here, How to Get the Most Out of Coaching. And it's a really great little read. And I was saying to you off air, there's not a lot of books out there that actually set people up for what is coaching, what is the agreement around coaching, and also how to best prepare for coaching. So with that in mind, I've just earmarked a couple of things that really stood out for me. So let's go there next. This one here, and I'm talking about curiosity all the time, and my usual listeners will appreciate this, but you say in the book here, it's about wisdom and having a love affair with questions. Knowledge is a love affair with answers. A coach coming from a place of wisdom has a natural curiosity. So I slowed down in reading that because it really did jump out at me around the power of questions. So I want to ask you, Karen, when did you discover that light bulb moment?
Well, early on in my coaching, I wasn't formally trained in the very beginning. So I started coaching 2007, and I hadn't gone through coach training school yet. I had an opportunity to coach inside an organization, their high potentials. And I went out and found Coactive Coaching had the only book at the time on coaching that I could find that was a complete kind of book, really thick book. And they talked about the difference between coaching and consulting. And consulting is really where you're bringing your expertise and advising and giving away that knowledge and expertise, whereas coaching is where you're evoking the inner wisdom of your client. And so it's very, very different in my mind. In my practice, I coach coaches and I coach executives. And when I'm coaching coaches, I am teaching, advising, and coaching. And I'm very clear about those distinctions. And when I'm working with my typically entrepreneurs, perhaps a CEO, most of the time I'm coaching, asking questions, evoking their own inner wisdom because they know the most about their business. They're typically a founder who started that business, and I know that they have the answers and they just haven't discovered it yet. And so it's a matter of really staying with them, being curious, and allowing silence and for them to find the answers.
I love that. Allowing silence. So many times we fill the space,
Yeah.
especially when we first start out coaching. So, what are some of the ways that you know, did that come naturally to you, or was that something you had to train within yourself to allow that comfort in the silence?
Well, what I'd say is that I've always been intuitive. And so when I discovered coaching and discovered that I could use my intuition and allow the questions to come forth, that made all the difference. In the beginning, of course, when I first started coaching and when I went through coach training, which I did a few years later, I remember like writing down, like all new coaches, writing down all these different questions, and then it was like, oh, after a week, throw that out, just hold the space and allow those questions to be come through me, so that they're being sourced through me. I don't need to be thinking ahead of the client. I need to be present with the client, not taking notes, and just pure presence with them.
Pure presence. Great tip out there for athletes as well as coaches, as well as leaders and managers, in being present, so you're not always thinking about how you're going to respond next. You're just trusting that the answers live within us. It's taken me a while, and I think even sometimes my intuition is better on some days than other days. What are your
That
thoughts around that?
uh, I believe that to be, yeah, to absolutely be true. That I think intuition, if you've ever read George Leonard's book on mastery, he talks about how we reach these plateaus and then we move up a level. And so, really embrace those plateaus. And I believe intuition works in the same way, that there's times when we are hitting that plateau, and just be patient, because what's going to happen is that we're going to be lifted up another level.
So good. So good. I want to read out one other earmark section of your book that I really appreciated. It's talking here about, whenever possible, co-create these action items with your coach rather than going it alone. By collaborating, you're likely to get ideas that you never would have come up with on your own. I'd love for you to share the story of one of your former coaches, and what what they had you do in really summarizing what I just read there, if you don't mind, about that experience that you had. I was really, I won't take the thunder away from you with that story, but I'd love for you to share that and expand on the power of collaboration, the power of partnership, and the feeling that you have when you have a coach in your corner.
So the power of co-creation, and I'm, PCC trained. I'm working on my MCC now. And so at the end of every session, the coach will ask you, what have you discovered, or what are your insights? Okay, now based upon that, what is one thing or maybe more that action that you could take? Because it's really the action that creates the change between sessions. And so Rich and I, who was my coach, Rich Lippin at the time, were in a coaching session, and I we were coaching around me caring too much about what other people think. And this is back in like 2013, and I hadn't been coaching, that as many years as I had now. And to him, he said, so, I shared my insights. He said, well, what's an action, Karen, that you'd like to take? And I was thinking, and he said, I have an idea, in his British accent, of course. And are you open? And I thought, oh, here it comes. Yeah. Oh, there's going to be something big here that I'm probably not going to want to do. And sure enough, his suggestion was to dress up like a homeless person and then go out into public and go out into like a big shopping mall, and see what other people's reaction is to me. And so I didn't like the idea, but I took on the challenge anyway because I thought, well, it's an experiment. Everything is an experiment in life. Why not just do this? And so that's what I did. And I spent like 4 or 5 hours out like this and just noticing. There was one situation where I sat down on a bench in the shopping mall, and this gentleman immediately got up and left. And I thought, that's okay. I'm still okay. And then I went into like the Aveda store, and they were just like embracing me, like, oh, would you like to try this lipstick? Oh, would you like to? Oh, this would be great for you. And it was these two young girls. And I remember just thinking, oh, wow, this is totally unexpected. And so there were many more. I could go on and on what happened in the 4 hours, but it was a beautiful experience for me, and one in which has lasted for, as you can tell, for a long time.
Yeah.
And just seeing that most people are concerned about themselves, not other people, and that we're safe no matter where we're at
Yeah. Yeah.
ourselves.
I also love the fact that you coached, sort of asked for permission as well. I think
Yeah.
sometimes we can make it assumptions about even if we want to share an idea. So just a little notice that Karen's coach in that moment ask, "Hey, can I share an idea with you?" So I think there's a nice little point of distinction there as well in the process that someone is in your corner because my background in sports is that motivational coach is a huge part of my background, as well as being a business coach, right? And like you, I've
Yeah.
been looking at MCC and the differences in really letting go of trying to solve the other person's problem and this whole co-collaboration piece around offering up a suggestion. And I think in my experience and what I'm finding these days is the permission piece is really critical.
Yeah. Yeah. And had he not said that, I don't think that if he had just thrown the idea out, right, that uh, I don't know that I would have been as, because it made me nervous. It wasn't like, oh yeah, I will definitely go do that. It was
Yeah.
like, okay, yes, I can do this.
Yeah. Yeah. And it stretches the comfort zone really, doesn't it? And
Yeah.
and so invite everyone out there just to think about how you can stretch your comfort zone today, just in one area of your life that you are having an insight around from taking action. Another huge, huge important point. Let's not brush over the importance of that. So where I want to go next intuitively, which you'll appreciate, is I'm thinking about one particular person that I've been coaching for about 3 years. And the one thing we've done better than any other year that I've been coaching him this year is the work that he is doing prior to the session. So I want to talk about the importance in your book. You really encourage that pre-preparation process before a coaching session.
Yes.
And I can't tell you even the difference that he's having in the sessions
Yes.
that we are having as well. So can you share some more about the
Yes.
preparation phase for both the coach and the coachee?
Yes. Yeah. So, in speaking about the coachee, the client, first, it's really important. Let's say that you're working with a very busy executive inside a corporate situation. When I'm working there, I say to them, let me talk to your assistant because what we're going to need to do is block at least 30 minutes pre your session so that you can begin to prioritize what you want to bring into the coaching that you've already considered during the week. And then we're going to want to have 30 minutes at the end of the session so that you can begin to integrate and perhaps even take action on what we have discovered in the coaching. And most of my executives are very amenable to that. If I'm working with a coach, I'm saying, give yourself, even if you want to do the way I do it, I give myself an hour before my session. And then I prioritize everything that I want to bring in because we may only get to the first thing. And it's definitely not the bottom of the list, the most, pressing issue. And then you have an hour afterwards again for taking that action. And, a lot of clients who've never been coached before, they don't understand the importance of this. And so having this book and being able to give it to them ahead of time, before I give it to them, before they even become a client of mine, so that when they come into, I always gift an experience first. When they come into that experience, they know how to show up as a client 100%. They know they need to bring it in, that it's their agenda, not my agenda. And then vice versa, with coaches, you want to have this, it's the same methodology.
Yep. Yep, absolutely. So therefore, could you share your experience with somebody's expectations versus the sort of coaching agreement? And I'll also preface this by saying that, one of my tried and true tested formulas for conflict equals expectation divided by reality, right? It turns out in conflict, especially in the workplace, so often when there's a mismatch
Yes.
between somebody's expectation and what's actually going on. So, how do you use agreement frames to really set up your practice for success?
Yes, yes. So this is something that I learned from my coach I worked with for years, Steve Chandler. He had an audio, and the audio was called Expectations versus Agreements. And the way Steve was using it was for his clients so that they could use it in the workplace and they could understand, like, when they had expectations of their boss or expectations of their employees. And when I listened to it, I realized that I was in expectation of my clients and that exactly what you described, Emma, exactly. And that I needed to get into agreement. And so what I did is the very first session where we're working together, we go through what I call spoken agreements. And I talk about this process in on my YouTube channel. It's called The Coach's Notebook. And there's a video out there on how I create these spoken agreements with my clients. And once I started doing that, and once I started teaching my coaches how to do this, they all do it. It's this beautiful relationship between you and the client. And if there is ever anything that doesn't work, you're always pointing at the agreement, not the other person. And it could be that there wasn't an agreement established, and so you can establish that agreement if you see that there is an expectation. Because under every expectation, there is a disappointment. And disappointments are really easy to feel. And then you just up level and go, oh, what was my expectation of them? Oh, got it. Okay, let me have a conversation now about that.
Could you
So,
give me one practical example of an agreement that you would encourage people to check in with?
yeah, yeah. So, um, really understanding like money, right? How if you have payment plan with a client, how is that going to be paid out? And will it be paid out on time? And at what time might you expect that? So that might be one. Another one might be, big one, might be around showing up on time for sessions. That I know when I was in the business world, I went from meeting to meeting and I was always 5 minutes late, and that was acceptable. Well, in coaching, you only have 60 minutes, 75 minutes, 90 minutes, whatever it is. And this is your time, and it's really important. And so I share the story in the book where I was creating my agreement with a client, and he said, well, I can't be on time. I might be in a meeting. And we had the conversation about, because he traveled extensively. And I just said, do you make your flights? And he said, oh, yeah, I always make my flights. I said, well, coaching is going to be just like that door. When they shut the door, that's just like us, right? That door is going to shut if you don't show up on time.
Absolutely.
And this is for you, this is your benefit, to your
Absolutely.
benefit.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, it's funny, I do pride myself on never canceling on anyone, but sometimes I cancel on myself. And it's a great reminder for us all to say, hey, we take care of our health, we take care of who we are first, and then we'll be much better off to service others. All right, now seems like a great time to ask you our guiding question on the podcast, which is in 1 to a maximum of 3 words. What do you think makes a great coach?
Trust. I think trust is the oxygen of coaching between client and coach. So trust. I would say intuition, I think, plays a huge role in coaching, and trusting your intuition, practicing. It's like a muscle, build those reps, and really integrity, living your being. And that, because the more you're working on yourself and your own being, the more that you bring into the coaching, that presence that I was talking about earlier.
So let's go to the inequities that women face in the workplace. I know you've recently done a talk on this, but when I think about trust, intuition, and integrity, I do think that women are very, and obviously I'm completely biased being a woman sitting here as well, but trust and intuition are things that I think are some of our real strengths. And the integrity piece, I think in the workplace there's a lot of aspiration around integrity. But talk to me about how both men and women how can they walk their talk on a daily basis? One thing around that. And what are some of the inequities that you see that women face in the workplace?
Okay, so we'll talk about integrity first, and then I'll talk about the inequities. In terms of integrity, and I work with both men and women, it really starts with, I wrote an article about this in my book, Unconditional Wisdom. And that is that it starts with I. And that means it starts here within yourself. And so even though no one's looking, right? It's about are you choosing to be in this moment? And it doesn't matter if anyone's looking or not. That if you walk out of the grocery store, and my partner Alex just recently did this, and he was in the self-pay and he didn't finish out the checkout, he went back in and said, hey, this is what happened. Let me take care of it. And no one would have been wiser, right? But that's just one example that comes to mind from something recent. And so in the workplace, I think especially for leaders, you do have people who are watching. And it's really important that you are authentic, consistent, and you have a deep level of integrity and caring for your people. Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Love that.
And then, in terms of inequities that women face, I gave this presentation in January in Arizona, and even I was shocked when I started to do the research for my presentation on all of the inequities that women still face based upon the statistics, and from, pay to there's a long list. I think that we need to continue our work. That I think culturally, as a country, we've been set back. And I am a believer in what, DEI and that, and what that was bringing to organizations. I do believe we were making progress. And uh, without being too political, I'm not happy about what has transpired in since January. So, uh,
Hmm.
if you'd like me to say more,
Yeah, well, let's tap into coaching. I mean, how does coaching help
yeah,
some of these things that we're facing?
yeah, yeah. So, coaching is really an accelerator for high performance in the workplace and at home. And so anything that we're working on in coaching is impacting you positively, both in the workplace as well as in your personal world. And so bringing in some of the things that you're struggling with, especially if you're a woman, is this is a wonderful and safe space to be able to learn how to overcome some of these inequities, how to have a stronger voice, how to lead your teams, how to speak to the inequities.
Yeah, and I think stronger voice doesn't necessarily mean large and in charge, does it?
Right.
Str-
No, no. It's about how you're showing up, your presence, and how you're commanding a room, and yeah, it's not about yelling or
yes. Yeah, just I know you meant that. I just wanted to
yes,
make that super clear because that's, strong voice can is so much about integrity, isn't it? I mean,
yeah.
that's what a strong voice really is. What you say you're going to do something and you do it and you follow up. All right. So let's round this episode about strengths-based coaching. I know that you really believe in that in relation to creating meaningful and lasting change. Focusing on someone's strengths. I mean, what's the balance between that helping someone see their blind spots and focusing on weaknesses versus how much you focus on really making sure that they're maximizing their strengths in your coaching? Can you talk to me about your experience there?
Yeah. So uh my focus is always focusing in on their strengths. And because the weaknesses, it's so subjective and not worth the conversation. That the strengths are what are going to, everyone has their gifts, and being able to see that, to see it within them, and to lift them up. That is really what coaching is about. That's what I mean when I say that acceleration for high performance.
Mm.
It's to be able to really zone in on, what is it that they bring to the table. I was just coaching with a client this morning, and that's where we were focused on his gifts and who he is.
Yeah, I love that. So, does high performance live within everybody and is everybody coachable?
So, great question. Uh, I believe if not everyone wants high performance. If they want high performance, we can create that for them. And is everyone coachable? It's about being ready for coaching. I think that's a better question. Is everyone ready for coaching? No. However, when they are ready for coaching, wow, we can really make progress.
And again, just to reiterate, that's why I appreciate your book, because really you are setting people up for the opportunity to be coached.
Yes.
Really. So
Yes. And not everyone, well, I just had a gentleman, he wasn't sure if he was coachable or not. It turns out he's highly coachable. He did something phenomenal, which I don't know, we probably don't have time for that story, but it was amazing. And we had a follow-up conversation. He said, wow, it turns out I am coachable. So, yeah.
there you go. There you go. Well, it's been a pleasure, Karen Davis, talking about the importance of tapping into our intuition. Even perhaps people may have noticed, even this conversation, we slowed down a little bit and created a space, a reminder for allowing the silence within the space for people to reflect and do some deep thinking, deep level thinking, and the importance of collaborating, asking permission, setting time for that preparation prior to coaching, and of course, the trust that the answers live within the people we are coaching is the oxygen of coaching. What's your one last tip that you'd love to share with our listeners?
It would be to explore coaching and to be sure that you have an experience of coaching with whomever you want to coach with, because it's important that you have that chemistry and connection with that person who is going to be in your life for maybe a very long time.
Yeah. Yeah. And one last thing I loved in your book too, sometimes when the energy and the connection isn't there, this is the beauty of even me interviewing so many people. Hey, I've got a coach who I could refer you on to if I think that Karen might be a great fit for you in terms of your background and your experience. So I think that's important as well when we take an honest, just look at ourselves, our style. Yes, we can adapt to who's in front of us and build that network. Be curious to build your network of other coaches out there who can support you, because being a coach is one of the greatest gifts in the world. So, Karen, thank you for being on the Coaching Podcast, and thanks for being a coach.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone, for listening.
The Coaching Podcast is sponsored by Transition Coach for Athletes, a global coaching, mentoring, and US college sporting scholarship placement service. The service helps athletes navigate the often challenging world of choosing your best college fit while maximizing sports performance. Visit www.transitioncoachforathletes.com. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a rating review on your podcast listening device. And don't forget to tell a fellow coach about the show. The ball is in your court to take action and enjoy your coaching.